Hey there, and welcome back to Checkbox Other. I am your host, Nikki Innocent, and I am so excited for you to be here today. Before I hop into the details of the episode, I just want to give you a little sneak peek of the kind of topics that we have coming up in the upcoming episodes. We will be talking about inclusive leadership. I am so grateful to have had one of what I see as the foremost experts in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space coming on to talk to us about what it means to be an inclusive leader. We talk about trust and building a team. We talk about inclusion in general and the shift in the landscape of what diversity means and of what inclusion means now that those words are definitely much more in mainstream consciousness and dialogue these days. Also, we have an upcoming episode that's all about social justice work and how that has shifted from more of the academic space where people didn't necessarily always know what social justice meant to, at this point, we are operating and living in a world where social justice is everywhere we turn. If it's on your Facebook feed, if it's on a flag outside, on a church you go by, in conversations you're having with family, the conversations around social justice are everywhere, and really understanding what social justice is all about and the spectrum with which we operate when we are really talking about making a large societal social justice-based change. So, just a couple little sneak peeks. We have so many other amazing guests coming up too, but I feel like I couldn't control myself. I needed to tell you about those that are coming up, so you make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so they come into your wonderful podcast platform when they are released. And really, I would love to hear from you. If you head over to our Join the Conversation page within the nikkyinnocent.com/podcast, there's a link called Join the Conversation. And in there is the ability to suggest topics that you want to hear about. I would love to hear from you about what topics and what topics of belonging you'd really like us to dive into. I have this wonderful list of incredible humans that I want to talk to, but I'd love to hear from you. You've been on this journey so far with me, and this is not a one-way street. I'd love to hear from you on what you are eager to hear about, what you are eager to think about and reflect on. And really, I just want to hear from you. So I would love to hear that. Obviously, in that form, there are a whole bunch of other options for how you can join the conversation. So head on over there and check it out. And then, I'm just going to cut right to it because I am so excited about our guest today. So today's guest is Eduardo Placer. I like to call him Eddie. Eddie is the brother of one of my very good friends, and he is just an incredible human being. His background was in acting. He was an incredible, and is an incredible actor and singer. And you will feel from the first moment of this podcast all of the energy that he brings into a room. I believe his first words are in song, which is exactly how Eddie operates. He is the first guy that we're having on this podcast. And I'm so excited. I know I mentioned in the trailer and in the first episode that we'd be likely hearing mostly women's voices. And I've had so many wonderful guys reaching out to me and telling me how much the stories of otherness, the discussions around topics that are normally taboo have really helped them and have helped them think and grow and reflect, and how supportive they've been. And so, I do feel like it's really important that we inject some male voices in here too. I know there might be an eye roll because when I'm doing diversity and inclusion work, a lot of times it's this question of, well, what about the men? It's not what we're saying here. It's more that there are some amazing men doing work in this space and talking about the unspoken. Their voices are really, really helpful to hear, and discussions are definitely important. Again, we're all about inclusion and not exclusion. And so I am so excited for you to hear from Eduardo Placer. We talk about, oh my goodness, his first experience of feeling othered. If you can't tell early on that he is an incredible storyteller, my goodness, the story of him standing in front of a room as a little kid and feeling that first moment of, oh God, I don't know if I belong here, if I am myself. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. We also talk about grappling with your own internalized oppressive beliefs that have been internalized through systemic oppression. So specifically, we talk about how Eddie has his own internalized homophobia as a gay man, and how that is something that he owns and names and works through each and every day. Again, I think that is such an important experience for us all to have, because I know personally I have my own conditioned beliefs that really, when I take a step back and I'm a little bit more mindful, if I go into the mindfulness practice of really noticing why I'm saying what I'm saying, if I believe what I'm saying, and really where those beliefs and those values and those things I'm saying are coming from. Are they coming from things I've heard before outside of myself, or are they coming from my inner intuition? So we talk a lot about that. We also talk about the incredible work he's doing by leveraging his male privilege and the power that he has of being a very white passing human American man to create spaces for women. And specifically, we talk a lot about women of color. We talk a lot about women that aren't necessarily native English speakers, that haven't always had the space to use their voices. And so he is an incredible, he calls himself a story doula. So he does trainings for women leaders to amplify their voices. And if you know anything about me, my business is called Story and Voice. It was all about helping you tell your story and amplify your voice. So Eddie's stuff is just like right in line with everything that is vibing with the way I think we need to make a change, make an impact in this world. There's so much more in this episode. Again, I mentioned from the get-go, there is so much excitement. There are times when we are laughing so hard we can't control ourselves. There are times that we get so excited that we're kind of going back and forth on this stuff. So please do enjoy. I can't wait to hear what you think. And really, if you enjoy this, the one last ask I will have here is, if you enjoyed this podcast, please do, coming out of this, take one moment during your week and tell at least one person about this podcast that might not have heard about it before. We all are experiencing this time of questioning and understanding what belonging means, questioning and understanding our beliefs, really our feet being put to the fire of who we are, what we believe, what is right and wrong in our mind. This particular podcast, why I'm doing it, is to create the space for these conversations to happen, and really for the reflection to happen in your own space, at your own time, because a lot of this stuff doesn't happen with a snap of fingers or necessarily in a workshop. So all that to say, I am excited for you to hear this. I am excited to hear from you. But first, let's get on over and listen to this wonderful, exciting, song-filled, and amazing quote-filled. My goodness, does Eddie have all the quotes and all the new vocab words to use to really take yourself to a whole nother level of sharing your story, your voice, your energy, and breathing life into every room you're in. So here we go. Eddie, hello.
Hi, hello.
I was hoping for the song. Yes, you too. So my goodness.
You just did a gesture where you kind of splayed your fingers on yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I have a term when this, I have we'll talk about this later, but I have this global program called a Fearless Force.
Yes.
Public Speaking for Visionary Women Leaders. And in our third circle in New York City, we do this exercise where people talk about, the women share, who are you going to be for your audience, right? That's not trapped by our fear and our shame, but like standing as a way to be, right? And they were saying bold, powerful, connected, elevated, sparkle, elation. And I said, elevated sparkleation.
Oh, yes.
That became the term. So when you raise your hands and you shimmy them at someone, we call that elevated sparkleation, and you can elevated sparklate yourself, which is what you were doing. You just elevated sparkulating yourself, and you were even shimming too while you were doing it. So you were totally feeling the vibrations, of elevated sparkleation.
Yes.
Elevated sparklationosity. Why not? Make up words.
Oh my gosh, give it to me. I want to wake up feeling. I'm like, see. So in some of the workshops I do, I'm always like, if something's true, you'll feel it in your body, and I get like tears. Sometimes I'm like, yes, that exactly.
Yes, I feel that. There's another great saying. It's from Papua New Guinea, and it's knowledge is only rumor until it lives in the muscle.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be dropping shit.
I mean, we're gonna do your journey through quotes advice.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like, if you think about it, there's what the mind knows and what the body knows, and the mind is not a good gauge. And if we talk about instinct, if we talk about desire, if we talk about all of that, like the body knows. Like, and to go off topic a little bit, but like I feel like in my dating life, like when you go on a date with someone and you hold hands with someone and you don't fit.
Yes.
It's like, I feel like my body is telling me this person is not a match.
And it's like, come on. Yeah.
You're like, your mind is like, come on. And then you kiss the person. You're like, oh my God, this kiss is horrible. But he went to Yale.
But all the checkbox, come on, this was
all the
right.
checkboxes. You know, he has an amazing investment portfolio and he has pedigree, but he can't kiss for shit. And
Yes.
not that he can't kiss for me. I don't believe that it's like a blanket horrible kisser. Because he may be somebody's great kisser, but he's not my great kisser.
Yes, we're not the puzzle pieces together. We're not
the puzzle pieces together, you know. And I think that that's one of those examples, and there are various ways in which I think, again, knowledge is only rumor until it lives in the muscle.
I love it.
And when it's in the muscle, you know it and you got it.
Yes.
Elevated sparkulation.
I didn't even know I was doing it. I can't control it. I'm like, yes, I feel it throughout. This feels good. This feels right.
I feel the body. Feels right. Cage. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna, for the listeners, I'm gonna bring us back. I mean, you're welcome, everybody, for the magic that you just witnessed. Eddie, I would love for you to start by talking a little bit about your journey, who you are, how you got where you are right now, twists, turns, aha moments, surprises, anything you want to go for. I want to hear all about it.
All of it. So it starts in Pinewood Acres, Miami, Florida, 1986, show and tell.
Yes.
And I was super excited, and I bring in this white stuffed animal seal that I would sleep with. And I stood in front of the class, and I had prepared the night before, and I had done all my work, and I looked at my classmates, and I said, seals are mammals. They live in the water. They eat fish. Sometimes they're eaten by sharks. And I was like, that was awesome. I was like, I said everything that I need to say. That was really on point. I was on task. And it went so well that as I went to sit down, I thought to myself, that went really well. Let's share some more.
Yes.
So then I looked at my classmates, and then I said, and I named him after someone in this class.
Oh.
Exactly. All of a sudden people were like, what? What's happening?
Is it me?
And then I said, I named him after Brett MacGyver.
Okay.
Who was the blonde popular boy that I had a crush on in second grade in Miami, Florida in 1986, and it didn't go well. And the moment I said that, I could feel the temperature shift in the room. And I made 3 decisions in that moment. And that was that when I stand in front of people to speak, I can't be myself. I can't speak the truth. And if I do, it's dangerous. Now I'm 42 years old. I was a professional actor for 15 years, right? I've spoken in audiences ranging from like 5 to thousands, and that fear is always present.
Yes.
So, and I also talk about what I call radical authenticity, right? There are people to whom the performing of their authenticity is inherently radical, it is problematic, and it is dangerous because there is an agreement in patriarchy or in privilege or in all these places where the presentation of that or the performance of that is actually not welcome. Like that's actually not acceptable, right? So we have to train and perform what we believe is passable, or what we believe is professional, or what we believe is that which is actually shedding our identity, it's shedding our authenticity, and we're taught to lie. Right? So for someone who did that, what did I become? A professional actor. So that's what I did. I put on costumes and I performed and I presented other people. Right? And
did it well. And did it well.
And did it well. I did all over the US. I did almost 40 productions, you know, musical theater, classical theater. And my home was in repertory companies, primarily doing Shakespeare and musical theater. And what was interesting was when I was in grad school, now within all of that, like I desperately wanted to sing and dance. My parents were afraid I'd be a little gay. Turned out I was super gay, you know, came out of the closet, you know, like started owning the authenticity of who I was, and still petrified and terrified, right? Because if I break it down, the biggest fear to this day, when I stand in front of people to speak, my biggest fear is they're gonna think, and I'm gonna say something, and I'm gonna take responsibility for what I'm saying. Okay. My fear is when I'm standing there, they're thinking, "Who's the faggot?" And I say that as someone who's been called that. And I say that as someone who is that, right? Because my fear was that they would think that I was my greatest shame. My greatest shame and my biggest fear was that I was giving them the clue that they were picking up on the truth about me, which I wasn't willing to accept.
Right. And that wasn't okay.
And it wasn't okay.
In the larger, yep. But it,
right?
Yeah,
This is before Ellen. This is before Will and Grace. This is the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Cuban, American, Miami, Florida, with an identical twin brother who's straight.
Yep.
Right? So like there are all these ways in which all of this was like at bay. So then when I was in grad school, in conservatory as an actor, all the grad acting students, all the MFA acting students taught public speaking.
Okay.
And I was like, ooh, this is really interesting. And what I saw were all the myriad ways in which we're all healing our shame and our fear and our doubt.
Yes.
And desperately calling forth to be authentic and be seen, and all the ways in which we're terrified and petrified of doing that. And then I became like a little bit of a whisperer slash, I would sister act people where all of them, these tiny little voices and they couldn't speak. And it was like, Sarah, like these voices like came out of people's, because the thing is that they were speaking as an intellectual exercise.
Yes.
They were not speaking as a physical, spiritual, and emotional exercise.
Yeah.
So it's through all this work that Fearless Communicators, my public speaking coaching agency, was born, right? And we believe that to be a fearless communicator, you have to be grounded in body, present in mind, lead from the heart, and speak into the spirit of our shared humanity.
Ooh, yep. Felt that through my whole body.
Say that again.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. Grounded in body, present in mind, lead from the heart, and then speak into the spirit of our shared humanity. And it is in this work that has been at the source of, I think, the true calling of my life and experience. That's what's also emerged is that who I am as a story doula.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what I have the privilege to do is hold space for a human being and their life experience, and with certain tools and really just like listening, right? Allow the truth to emerge in a way that has that truth be of service of humanity.
Yeah. Well, and I, from a personal experience of being around you and witnessing others around you, there is the unspoken aspect. And I think this was the front part of your story, doula, that is not something that most people can do, is that not only do you create the space, but you create a space that says, whoever you are welcome to just exist as that. Yeah. You don't have to be the best storyteller of that story, but exist as yourself here and we'll get there.
We will totally get there. There is nothing more important than authenticity.
Truth.
If you show up, now that doesn't mean wing it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that like I talk, like we can talk about preparation and all that other stuff and the whole processes that I have. Right. And the point is that at the end of the day, we don't want a performance. We want authenticity.
Yes.
Right. Now you can be authentic with performance and that's awesome. Right. Now you can do a performance and it's fake and phony and it feels like bullshit, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like, I don't know, it feels weird. We're like, it's misaligned, right? Yeah. It's gross. And we felt it before, right?
Oh yeah.
But the point is that there's a way for you to show up, right? That is in alignment with your truth. And when you speak it, will forgive anything. Now there's a fine line, I believe, between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
And I think that the fine line is generosity. I think the ingredient is generosity. I can stand, right, in the present moment, right, confident of my experience and all of that. And the channel that I'm communicating from is generous. Who I'm being is generous with this information. Who I'm being is generous with the space. Yes. Who I'm being is generous in the sharing. right? And the audience is feeling the generosity and they're giving back. So they're being generous with the speaker, right?
Yes.
So we have this cycle of generosity that is like, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And then there's arrogance, which is confidence that's about performance. It's about fake. It's all about the speaker. It's a me conversation. It is not a we conversation.
Yeah. It
Right?
doesn't matter who's out there.
And I call it 1980s public speaking.
Yes.
It's like that really large double-breasted suit that looks like a fucking box. It's like shoulder pads. It's hair to Jesus,
Yes.
you know, and Tammy Faye Baker, right? And it's like, you know, I have an amazing house in Connecticut and I play golf and look at my amazing pink shirt and look at my $1 million in my life and all that other stuff. It's amazing. And meanwhile, he has 17 mistresses, right? He has zero money in his bank account, right? It's all this performance of success. And it's like, I'm actually interested in the way you're fucking up your world and your life.
Yes.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's compelling.
Yeah. And the
Right?
stiffness, even of all the imagery you just put forth, right? The hair, if the hair is that high, there's so much that's keeping it there. The shoulder pads, there is this, you have no flow. You have no real human reaction. You're operating like that robot. And on top of it all, it's tap into the actor dynamic. You've got costumes on, right? How we need to strip those layers away, because I think there's a part of where we are now that we have reality TV that still people are acting in those, right? They're doing their own version of whatever filter they want to put on. But there's so much that's stripped away because the cameras are following you around. And so this idea of, look at my shiny life. Everyone's like, you're a real person. Like, I could see through that.
You're a real fucking person. I can see it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure you've taught, I'm sure you're a Brene Brown fan.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Clearly, hello, praise her.
Yes.
I was just in Madrid.
Yes.
So and I was in Madrid with family. So it was the tail end of a trip. So I had flown to London to do the first European Fearless Force program. So in 2015, I created a program. It's called the Fearless Force Public Speaking for Visionary Women Leaders.
Yes.
And it was born out of looking at the landscape and just seeing seriously white men everywhere.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm a queer Latino Latinx who passes for white.
Yep.
Right? So I'm easy ethnicity. You have Eduardo Placer. Do you know what I mean? There he is, easy ethnic, right?
Yep.
So there's the complicated racial ethnic conversations that exist there, and then the conversations around diversity, inclusion, and equity, right?
Yes.
So I'm an easy check. I'm an easy check in that space, right? But I'm looking at that landscape and I'm like, where are the women? Where are the people of color? And I was like, that doesn't fucking work.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, what is it that I can do, right, to help prep and prepare and generate some energy and action and creativity around that? So what I did is I consolidated my 3.5, 4-month one-on-one coaching program into 6 days.
Oh.
And said, I'm in 6 days. It's like getting shot out of a cannon. And I said, I'm doing this program specifically for women. Now, I fully acknowledge my privileges as a man when I'm working with the women. So I always begin by saying, I am a man, I am a gay man, still a man, still walk through the world with the privileges of my manhood, right? And I have no idea what it means to be a woman. I don't pretend to know the experience of femininity and womanhood.
Right.
And what I do know is that what I can do is hold the space with love and generosity and kindness to allow you to show up wherever you are and allow the space for the truth to emerge and empower you to share that truth in your diverse body, with your diverse voice, without any fucking apology for who you are and what you have to say on this fucking planet.
Yeah. Yes. And I think there's a part of this that your awareness of the struggle and oppression that these women have had to go through, very specifically about using their voice, right? And existing in space and taking up any room. So creating the opportunity for that space to be like, actually, this space is here for you to fill it.
To fill it.
Yeah.
And fully acknowledging that male homophobia is misogyny.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
There is nothing more distasteful, hate-inducing than a feminized man.
Yeah.
You know, and it is that you can get killed for, like in some places in the world, that is a
Yes.
death sentence.
Yeah.
To be a man who chooses to present and perform and or decline malehood and say who I identify as is as a woman. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing more violent or gross, you know. And if I think of my trans sisters,
Yeah.
the trans sisters of color, right? You know, their experience, right? How like that, like like I can
The
have an
visceral reaction that happens.
of
Yes.
what my journey has been in the
Mm.
understanding and the accepting and the loving of my own femininity
Yeah.
within the context of my own internalized homophobia, because
Yes.
I was raised in a gay world, in a
Yes.
homophobic world,
Yeah.
and I am a gay man who is homophobic.
Yeah.
Right. So like
Yeah.
I am constantly in dialogue with my own homophobia, as
Yes.
I am with my own racism or my own
Yes.
bigotry or my own prejudice, which is just, again, a product of you grew up in a world that is like,
Yes.
there's no such thing as a colorblind world. There's no such thing as all lives matter. Bullshit.
Yes. Right.
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 It is like there are frames and there are lenses, and it's like, and actually the appreciation and the understanding of the lens, not as a judgment, actually is what creates empathy.
Right. And an acknowledgement of the reality that we live in is so
Totally.
important to move anywhere from that. So the whole idea of colorblindness, right? Or the whole idea of, well, homophobia was a thing. It's like, no, it's all this is still here. We need to operate with the understanding of the world we're living in and understand where it comes from and how it's living within us to move ourselves away from this as the status quo.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's like, and you can do the internal work. You know, it's the people who are like, I'm not a racist. However, I don't want my child to marry someone who's Black.
Right. Right. Right.
Or I don't want a Black grandchild.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So how is that not racist? I have Black friends. Well,
right.
You know, or it's really great if someone else is like, I love my gay hairdresser.
Right.
You know, but God forbid my son comes home and says, I want to wear dresses.
Right. Yeah. And it's the idea of what, like, oh, I'm going back to your body, right? It's the way that you can mentally work around all of these beliefs that are in your body because you have lived that way and you are reacting, right? Mm-hmm. It's the whole idea of being in an elevator and grabbing a purse. You didn't actively say, oh, I need to grab my purse right now. It's something that your body has been taught to do in some fucked up, supremacist, oppressive dynamic that we're in. And so it's this idea of taking it just from the mind, because we all like to think, right? We like to think we can outthink our bodies. We can outthink all the rest of it. Really understanding that it's so much deeper than that.
The knowledge is in your body.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It lives there.
I'm going to write it down, put it on a wall.
Yeah, my homophobia is in my body. My racism is in my body. It is there. And unless I am in dialogue with it, right, and I'm aware of it and I acknowledge it, right, then I can actually have a conversation with someone because I'm present to the frame. Yeah. Right? So
and anyway, coming as someone that's willing to learn too. So to be aware of and have a conversation from the point of, this is the arrogance confidence thing you were just talking about. Being willing to come to the table and learn something rather than coming to the table and saying, well, I've learned about this myself and this is the only conversation I'm willing to have. That's where the juxtaposition happens, where it's like, it's great that you seem to be somewhat aware, but if you're not willing to learn more, then you're really just going to be stuck in the old way that you did not necessarily always choose for yourself.
And this may be a little uncomfortable for a white, cisgender, heterosexual man, a privileged and or woman. Yeah. But maybe what there is for you is just be quiet. And maybe you haven't had that experience before because you haven't been silenced.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So that's something that's emerging for me right now, what is the trauma of generations of silence? And then let's talk about public speaking.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And let's talk about public speaking programs, which are based in corporate models, which are based on us performing patriarchy. And how does a diverse body, a woman of color with curves or whatever, and an accent because she was born in a different country, how are you actually having a conversation that is colonial, where you are having her shed her identity to perform professional when there's no way she will ever be that because you will never see her as that.
Right. And the amount of energy you're taking away from her to do the work that she would be doing.
Totally. to
To
own the
show up.
fucking space with her experience, with her background, with her binationality, with her biculturality, with the access to her 2 different languages, and standing on a stage and being able to lean and share from both.
Yes. Oof.
Right? There's a client of mine, her name is Hiroko Ideguchi, and she's Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay. This woman, she's a love and relationship coach, and her specialty
Ooh.
is a love and relationship coach for women who are born in foreign countries and come to the US.
Yes.
If there's one word that she had to describe for her, and that she took part in my Fearless Force program, one of the ones in New York. She was in Fearless Force 12 in New York City.
12.
And she
Hey.
said, hey, and she's like, if there's one word that I could use to describe my parents' relationship, it was, and then she said the Japanese word, and then she said silence.
Whoa. Wow.
That was the model of love that she saw. Marriage and love was about silence. So what she did is she came to the US when she was 21, and she married the first man with whom she had a conversation.
Wow.
So now she's 21 in the United States, and she is from an island that is so remote. Okay, her island is so fucking remote that, like, to get there, it takes 3 days. Like, you have to, like, and the name of the island is called Go-To Island. It's like, it's Go-To Island, but no one wants to go to it.
Yeah. It's like, how do you go to that island? They're like, oh, Go-To Island. This is how.
Yeah. You can't get there. Like, it's literally, you have to fly into Tokyo. From Tokyo, you have to fly somewhere else, and then you have to take a ferry for 9 hours because you have to go to all these different islands to get to this island. She said the island is silent. She was like, there is like one road with streetlights, and she's like one of 7 kids, right? And she was like, get me the fuck out of this island. So she left this island at 21. She married the first person she had a conversation with, and she was like, this doesn't freaking work.
Yeah.
And then she like kept on creating relationships with men that were all based on some model that was formed by what she saw mirrored in her parents.
Yeah.
Right? So marriage was about convenience, and it was about obligation, and that was relationships. And then finally she found herself in a relationship with a man, and she needed to go to, she was getting her passport, green card. There was something that was being managed, right? And she had the flu and she couldn't reschedule it. So she had to go, and she said, can you take the day and take me to the passport office? He said, no, I gotta work. And she was like, really? She was like, I'm dying, like I'm sick. All of a sudden she was like, no, go by yourself. So she went by herself on the train, you know, to take the picture and wait in line, like all of that. So she had a picture for 10 years where she was like she was dying, literally dying. And she stood on that platform, and she all of a sudden remembered that what he had said to her was that when a woman is in a relationship with a man after the age of 35, it's just really all about friendship anyway. And she was like, that's fucked up.
Oh,
she was like, I am a 35-year-old woman, and I want to be desired.
Right.
Like, I want to be longed for. Like, I want to, like, I'm a sexual, awakened, beautiful, you know. And she was like, fuck it. She went and she said, this is over. And he said, but we just signed a lease. Okay. That was his response to her saying, and she was like, peace out. End of the relationship. She was like, I am done. And then she stood on a platform. She kept on having these awakenings on a platform. She was on a subway platform, and all of a sudden this voice emerged from her that said, you don't have to go to the gym anymore.
Yes, girl. Okay.
She was like, I don't have to be some idealized thing. She's like the anti-Marie Kondo Japanese woman. She's like, you don't have to be small, you don't have to petite. And she freaking manifested this amazing man who's an artist. And she's like, there's one word to describe her relationship with him. It's uncommon. It's
unexpected.
Her relationship is unexpected.
Nice.
So she went from silence to unexpected.
Yes. Which.
Right. And I just worked with her on another talk, and she went, and it's like her journey from being small, you know, submissive and silent, to being loud, liberated. And it was loud, liberated, and what was the other one? Large. to being
Oh,
large, loud, and liberated. Right?
yes.
And it's like, she has a big face. She's a big Japanese woman. She's got curves. She's got bones.
Yes.
She was like, I'm not a size 0 with tiny little hands who likes to fold shit. She's like,
Yeah.
folding clothes is stupid. I hate it.
Right.
And
And there
it's
are
like,
people, and the thing is, there are people
oof,
that love all of that, right? And so that's
let
like,
them love it.
there's space for all of us here. I don't have to
Yeah,
fall into whatever mold that is.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And there are people who feel like they fail because they're not that.
Yep.
And there are
Oh
people
yeah.
who are taught, and you're forced to believe your entire
Well,
life, like the ways in which we're psychologically forced to believe that no one will see me because I can't be a woman who's loud. I can't be a
right.
woman who's large. I can't be a woman who's this, right? And it's like, fuck it. Celebrate it, speak your truth, stand on that stage and do it.
And
So
like
anyway,
you were saying, the
yeah,
radical authenticity piece of it, right? So it's not just the internal part of that. It is externally. When you don't see very many women that I'm sure visually appear like her. And so it's this idea of purely existing as yourself creates that space for people to be more radically authentic
totally.
if they do feel similar to how you are presenting yourself in this world, because they haven't necessarily seen that model before. There is something, I did a workshop almost 2 months ago now, and the aha moment for me was, I was like, I've mentioned this before, but lying on the floor in a fetal position. And it was a moment it was about wild dreaming and desire. And it was midway through this workshop, and the idea of wild dreaming and desire was something that wasn't allowed. It was a silent, right? You had to shush, you had to push that away, you had to push it back. And again, lying on the ground. And I was like, I am meant to be exactly who I am exactly right now, and to do it loudly, and to do it like the young version of myself did before she learned how to look like someone in a magazine, or learn to be someone that was quiet so other people could speak louder, or that you were my good Black friend, like you're a good one, but my family doesn't allow that. So I need to make sure I keep myself as small as possible, because if I become too much
Yeah.
of something, then I won't be allowed. And so there's something so wonderful by her existing as who she is. She
Yes.
is changing so many lives that she's not even aware of, just by holding that space.
And naming it.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
listen, I'll tell you two quick stories. I just there's an amazing woman in DC who does a program called She Thinks Purple, which is
Okay.
all about women of color, entrepreneurs, empowerment, all this stuff. Her name is Danielle Toussaint. She's extraordinary. And I worked with all of these 5 women who were pitching their businesses. So there was this moment where they showcased who they were. And there's this woman, I believe her name is Halima Nash, out of Los Angeles,
Okay.
African-American woman. And she went to Howard. And she apparently at Howard, when you would introduce yourself at Howard, you would say, hi, my name is Halima Nash. You would say where you're from, and then you would say what your major is. Like, so there was like some plenary session, some giant thing, and there's a very formal way in which you're taught to like introduce yourself with authority and pride. So she
Yes.
was like, hi, my name is Halima Nash. I'm from Compton, California, and I'm studying marketing. And then people came up to her and said, you really shouldn't say that you're from Compton. What you should really say is that you're from Los Angeles, because if you say that you're from Compton, then people are going to be assuming that
Yeah.
you're lower class, or you're, let's be honest, really Black.
Mm-hmm.
And we could probably insert another word in there that I'm not going to say, right? But I would say it's the same thing with, I remember when I was in a Latino development training program, because I did work with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the National
Yes.
Association of Latino elected officials when I was in high school. And I remember between my junior and senior year, I interned with a representative, and we went to this conference in Chicago, and there were Latinos from 5 cities, Miami, New York, Houston, LA, and Chicago. So there were like groups of Latinos from these, and this girl from Miami said, hi, my name is whatever her name was. I'm from Hialeah, Florida. And I was like, who the hell would want to say you're from Hialeah? Like, that's trashy Cubans. Like, you would never,
Oh no.
It's
Right.
like, why would you ever like identify as that? There's like, but now looking back, it's like she claimed where she was from.
Yes. She held her space.
Claim
Yep.
it. Held your space. Claim where you're from. There's no apology, right? You can be smart and educated, profound, and wear low hats and have your bangs and have that ponytail, and wear your Z-Cat Ricci's, and And I can actually choose to listen through the accent and listen through the body and actually hear what it is that you have to say, because what you have to say is actually really profound.
And
right? So it's like,
get rid of all the stuff that has defined what that is.
Totally.
And now you have a real live human being living and embodying somebody that is from there, rather than what you thought made that stereotype a reality. You actually have a real human being that can live it out.
And it's my own shame and fear about, what I don't love about my culture.
Yeah.
Or it's my own anti-Latino-ness or my anti-Cuban-ness that is manifested there, right?
Yeah.
I just did a workshop with TED residents. And part of what I do is I always begin with preparation. So like how you prepare to speak. It's about grounding your body. We do vocal exercises and physical exercises and stuff like that. And part of it is being heard. And how do you understand, like, what are the technical aspects of how you use your body as a tool to communicate?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to drop another bomb. There's no such thing as private speaking.
Truth.
It's all public speaking. So people who are saying, I'm afraid of public speaking, it's just you're afraid of speaking.
Yeah.
Right? It's
unless you're Issa Rae in the bathroom with your mirror, that's probably the only private one.
But what happens if someone's walking by? Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like, it's like, as long as it's out loud, like it is in the world. It is not private. It is public. Anything that you say is public. It is out there.
Especially now, right? We've got, if you have your phone next to you, who knows who's listening to you? Yeah.
Who knows who's recording, who's going to put it on Instagram?
Yep.
Right. Yep. On Facebook. It'll come back to bite you in the ass. Right. So so I was doing this workshop and we were doing this and I do this exercise where they say, ma, and they like send sound forward and they like bring it into the space. And the 3 African-American men in that program came to me and they said, as a unit, commented that they did not have an experience of themselves having permission to be loud.
Yep. In their lives, right? You mean?
In their lives.
Yep.
That they were always mitigating and performing quiet because they couldn't be a loud Black man. And I was like, until we acknowledge that in any type of business setting, when we talk about public speaking training, then you're putting lipstick on a pig.
Right. Across the board, as an audience member, right? So it doesn't have to be just those 3 men. It's everybody who's listening. Totally. You have to understand that there's something that's been conditioned in you that makes them showing up loudly. It makes you react some way or another, or the world around you tends to do that. That makes these men feel like if I use my voice, I'm intimidating. But that guy right next to me, who's a white guy, can do the same thing and he's not intimidating. How is that? How Correct. Are we really truly different? Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And then how are they speaking? Right. So then it's like, where do we have, like, what are the tropes that we have?
Yes.
Like, well, if he's performing Black preacher, then he can be loud because he's talking about Jesus and he's talking about la, 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 la. And like, oh, praise him. Yes, we love that. And let's sing our spiritual and we're going to ride the chariot in the morning, Lord,
right.
Et cetera. But then, what are the permissions? What are the tropes that we have? And there are some people to whom that is authentic.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right. So awesome. You can have space to do that. And that doesn't mean every person who looks a certain way has to perform that.
Yes.
Right. So which is why I say all of our work begins by grounding in the body and understanding your body. Right. And I've made a distinction now. So I no longer talk about presentation skills. I call it presentation skills. And presentation skills training is a direct reaction to 1980s, how to win friends and influence people, Toastmasters, performing and presenting professional.
Yep.
And presentation is about the act of presence, right? Which is bringing your whole body, mind, heart, spirit to a moment.
Yes.
And being a vehicle for a message in service of an audience.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the goal is to disappear. The goal for me as a speaker is to disappear so that I am using my body. I am no longer in some past narrative about myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I do an exercise where everyone identifies what their limiting belief is. It's like, I'm too gay, I'm too fat, I'm too stupid, I'm a woman, I'm not smart enough, I'm an imposter. Like all the ways in which you end up being in some internal conversation that has nothing to do with anything that's out in the audience.
Yes.
Right? Because your speaking is not inside of you, your speaking is outside of you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're speaking out in the world in service of an audience, right? And then how you craft powerful stories that are about connecting with people. And I make a distinction between connecting and connecting. So connection is when we're still connected, you're in action. I want you to be connected. I don't want you to be connected. Connecting is nice, but then you go back to doing the same shit or you're scrolling on your iPhone.
Right.
And
you're connected through social media, right? So you're not really connected. Like, here's my business card. Yeah.
Totally. That's not a connection. Now, connection is like, oh my God, yes, totally. And now I'm putting and implementing this in my life in a way, and I'm transformed through this experience.
Yes.
That to me is a different way of showing up. Right? That's the difference between something. So it's like, I hope you get something out of this. It's going to be really nice. These next 15 minutes, I hope you get one thing out of this. Fuck that. These 15 minutes are going to transform your life. And I invite you to sit on the edge of your chair and listen to this like it's going to do that.
Yes. And be present with me.
For the ride. And be present with me.
Yeah. Because a lot of times, even as an audience member, it's difficult to be an active listener and be in the moment with the person that's speaking. Your own limiting beliefs are popping up, no matter whether it's you're listening to the words they're saying, you're looking at who they are, it's what the temperature of the room is. There's so many things that are going on. So if somebody is fully present and showing you what that's like, it can be very contagious in a wonderful way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are social beings, so we are actually influenced by what's happening around us.
Yes.
So if you are sitting around people who are on top of each other and everyone's leaning in and listening and participating, right? Then one is the thing for the speaker to generate that. And how is the audience showing up to also give that to the person?
Give that back. Because it's a reciprocal dynamic.
It is a reciprocal dynamic. It is a conversation. You can't swipe them off. You can't pause them. It's actually live, real, and in space.
Okay.
So anyway, there's just lots of shit that we've been talking a lot.
So much.
And then the piece about, which has to do with spirit, right? Because I've dropped spirit here several times. I said the word spirit and spirit of shared humanity. Now, spirit, I don't mean that in any religious way, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even, and it is a spirit. I guess it's spiritual because it has the word spirit in it, right?
Right.
But do you know what the root word? It's the same root from the word to inspire.
Esprit. Yep.
Do you know what that means?
No, tell me, educate me.
Educate you. I'm going to mansplain it. I'm just kidding.
Do it. I'm ready.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
I receive it.
I'm putting my old corporate Nikki on. I'm ready. Let's go. No.
Yeah. So you just did it. It means to breathe.
Okay.
That you just inspired and then you just expired.
Yes.
To inspire and expire. To aspire with breath.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is all connected to the breath. Now, when we speak, what are you doing?
Breathing. Yeah. And you're learning to use certain muscles to get that. Oh my goodness. Come on now.
So there are moments when what I can do with an audience is I can actually literally breathe them in.
That's so cool.
I can be inspired by them. I can look out in the audience and connect with these human beings, with these bodies in this space, and share and breathe the same air that is giving them life. And bring that in and source that energetically, right? And then as I exhale, as I speak with breath, allow my breath and my words to ride that and connect to their heart.
Wow.
And to connect to their spirit. Right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, that is a different way of speaking.
It's a different way of living.
It's a different way of living. And that is how we share spirit. Because what happened is in this talk, like we talked about Hiroko, right? The Japanese woman. We talked about all these other people that I've worked with, and we've shared, right? And what's happened is I've given voice and breath to these people. They are now alive for you, in your mind, in your imagination, right? And when we speak of people who are no longer here, we give them life, we give them breath, they are present, they are in spirit with us.
Yes.
Right? So that is the power of spirit with breath and your voice. So it's the acknowledgement that when you have the opportunity to stand in front of people to speak, and I make a distinction between speaking and sharing, right? Because we're again in a conversation for generosity, that as you're standing up there and you're in a space and you are sharing, right, that what you are doing is you are sharing spirit and allowing your knowledge and your wealth and your experience to channel from you into them so that that can make a difference in their lives.
Yes.
And that's the opportunity.
Yes. And allowing them to reciprocate that back, allowing their energy to come back your way. Because again, in the we'll say in the you said 80s and 90s speaking dynamic, it was, I'm gonna give it all to you, but whatever you give back, I mean, if it's financial, great. But there is this piece that there's still a divider between us. Whereas this way,
we were taught.
Yeah. Yep.
We were lectured at, we were spoken to, we were talked at.
Yeah.
Right? How many teachers did we have who just like lectured and read shit to you and like you didn't have to be there?
Right.
Like,
or you didn't have the ability to ask a question, right? There was, it's not time for questions right now. Or, you know, that's not where we're going with this. If you could just, here are the questions you're allowed to ask, or here are the answers you're allowed to give. Stay there. That's kind of how you learn. Yeah.
And then you get an A.
Yeah. Right.
For performing and presenting successful professional, blah, 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 blah.
That makes everyone comfortable.
That makes everyone comfortable, because God forbid you actually raise your hand and say, well, why don't we have a real conversation about how this country treated our indigenous communities? Right, what we're talking about.
But let's celebrate Thanksgiving. How about it?
Let's look at let's celebrate, and let's talk about Mount Rushmore. And like, let's dig into Mount Rushmore and how amazing Mount Rushmore is, and not look at that's the most sacred site of that indigenous community. It's like taking Jerusalem, you know, and taking that Temple Mount, you know, or going to Mecca, and on that rock carving Walmart, you know, and you know, Crest and Colgate. I mean, what they did is they literally carved the heads of 4 U.S. presidents who are an indicator and representation of every contract that we broke with these indigenous communities and raped and pillaged their land.
Wow.
Right? So like, I can't even think about Rushmore. Like, I went to Mount Rushmore and I was like, oh my God, I took pictures. It was amazing. It was amazing. I was like, when I found out that that was the most sacred site in that entire nation's like space, like direct channel to God and to the heavens, and we did that, you know, and how does a 5th grader raise that when you're talking about American history?
Right.
And how is a teacher prepared to actually have that conversation?
Right. But there's also the responsibility now as an adult that as a 5th grader learn that, like you're saying, to take that learning and understand what it means now that you have a more nuanced aspect of what that history is, and more voices writing the history and giving the history, because you really only had one. Like, that our responsibility, it's this whole, it's the whole idea of, oh, well, slaves came here before my time. I wasn't alive for that, so it's not my thing. It's like, yeah, but we've learned the mentality. We've learned the operation that created and allowed that dynamic to thrive. We've learned how to erase Native American history from the place that was their home. So yeah, okay, you learned that, but you have a responsibility. Yes.
The wealth of this country and the wealth in the pocketbook of your family and the families of all these other people have blood on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Your 401k
Yeah.
and your retirement policy and that house in Connecticut, you know, and the beach house on Fire Island, you know, and all of that, you know, whether inherently or not, is on the backs of the oppressive ways in which this is treated diverse communities.
And you have the choice.
People of color, and you have a choice. And I'm not blaming you for it.
No.
I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying acknowledge, bring distinction to that as an understanding, because understanding the reality and the truth of that will actually set you free to actually have a conversation with someone.
And to choose the actions that you take next to, it's not your fault, but you have power to make the future different than the past. So however that looks to you, once you have the information, hopefully you can't unlearn it. And it's up to you the responsibility you have is to understand where it came from, what you have the power to do. I mean, I spend so much time now, and again, the last like 4 years of my life, I've become more aware of what's going on across the board, and every day, even in this conversation right now, I've learned things. And I find myself my economic power that I have, right? The $5 in my wallet type thing. I am very, very purposeful with where those $5 goes, because that's my ability to influence the system.
Absolutely.
It's not $5 million, but it is $5. So where does that $5 go? And it can be thoughtful of who's benefiting from that. It takes a little bit more time, right? But it also is like, that's even those $5, that's my contribution to how to make this world move a little bit further away from the oppressive world we came from.
Yeah. And to be fearless in how you speak about it.
Yes.
And fearless is not fear gone. It's not fear done. It's not fear without. It's fear less.
I love that. Oh my goodness.
So it's about standing powerfully in the face of what you fear over and over again so that fear diminishes.
So I want to ask you something. Yeah. I want to hear a little bit about.
I've got to go. Oh my God, I've got to go.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to ask you one thing. I'm going to ask you. Oh, okay. Here's what I'm going to ask. In the next year, what are you looking forward to the most so that people can hear the amazing things you're bringing to this world?
So one of the things, the two things. One, we're continuing to do our global Fearless Force program. So we do that in New York, San Francisco, London, Sydney, and Tel Aviv. So we do it in 5 cities, all over the world. The vision is in 2024, doing 24 simultaneous programs in 24 time zones.
Woo!
So to literally have one day of epic fearlessness where you have 24 programs that are culminating at the same time, but in their time zone. So it's 7 p.m. starting in Fiji, and then on the hour, you have a launch of groups of women telling stories. So seeking their truth, power, vulnerability, all of that stuff. So that's one thing that we're expanding that. And what I'm doing is bringing now this Fearless program, this Fearless Force program, done specifically for women out in the world, bringing that to corporations to work with their diverse talent.
Yes.
So the conversation is, if you're really in a conversation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, how are you creating the space for them to show up and be empowered to speak and share in their authentic voice, in their authentic body, acknowledging that they have not had the privilege of space because they have been silenced. And I'm talking about African-American, women, Latino, differently abled, veterans, like all these ways, LGBTQIA, all these ways in which these diverse people, right, have not been given the pathway. And what's happening is that when they're given the opportunity, the expectation is that they be at the same level of everyone else who's had the privilege to be heard their entire lives. Yeah. And they don't.
Right. And I'll even go when we have that opportunity, because most of the people that are sitting here listening and saying, oh my God, that's amazing. They have been in this situation one way or another. They have not had the platform. They have not had the voice. And I have, you and I, we both, this is why it's something that resonates so fully through our body, is whether it's been, it's not the oppression Olympics in any way, but we've all felt some way where we have been silenced and not heard and not allowed to be ourselves. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And and the thing is, we haven't been taught. No one's taught us, because they teach us, again, speaking as an intellectual exercise, not the practice of it. So how do you, what's happening in your body? Yeah. How do I breathe? How am I connected? When do I move? When don't I move? And I make distinction between, I don't want you to perform someone else now. What there are really specific tools that you can use to make sure that the audience understands what you're saying. So the focus is always that the audience understand the message, and there are ways when I move, when I don't move, how to use a space, right? Because people are like, I use too many vocal fillers and I'm too gestural. Well, you know what? I'm Cuban. We use our hands. Yes. I am not English. I will not be colonized, and told that I can't move my body.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to move my body. Now, I will not be overly gestural because I'm awkward and I don't know what, because I'm not aware of what my body is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to go off the, yeah. I hear you.
Right. Okay. And there's a way that I can still be gestural in alignment with my authenticity.
Yes.
Right. That feels grounded with who I am and is authentic to who I am and my experience and my culture. Right.
Yes.
And I'm not distracting from the message.
Yes.
There's a fine line.
Okay. So 24 of these simultaneously happening.
2024. So follow us through the next couple of years as we're doing that. They can follow on Instagram at Stand for Fearless. We're also going to be launching a new website on Monday. www.fearlesscommunicators.com. And Nikki, if anyone listens to this, if they want to shoot me an email, Eduardo@fearlesscommunicators.com. I have a special free PDF that I call 10 Simple Backstage Tips to go from a
Yes.
to a star.
Oh,
They
yes.
just have an email, and they can say, Nikki Innocent, and then I will get that off to them.
Cool.
Okay?
I'll have it all in the show notes too, so it'll be perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time today, my friend. It
Thank
was
you
such a
so much,
treat.
Eva.
I'll see
Such
you
a gift,
later.
such a joy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. Gonna do
Elevator,
those
take it away.
fingers again. Got to do the fingers again.
I love it.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care, sweetheart.
Bye.
Bye.
Was I right? My goodness, what energy came through that interview. Eduardo Placer, my goodness, you really do breathe life into every room that you are in, every virtual setting that you are in. And I didn't mention this up front, but I'm sure you kind of got the gist. We could see each other during this conversation. So I was having a whole lot of body movements and felt called to move along with a lot of the stuff he was saying. Well, I hope that you got as much out of this conversation, as much energy out of this conversation, as much ability to not only connect, but to connect. See, I'm already using his words in here. I am just so excited for this platform, and I'm so grateful for your ears. And if any aspect of this conversation really, really spoke to you, rang true, please do let me know about it. The thing that fills my cup is hearing how all this work that I'm doing, and really all this talking that I'm doing, it's always been my favorite thing to do, to talk to people, is actually helping and impacting your life. So if there's anything, any aspect of this podcast, this episode, other episodes that have spoken to you, have come up in your life otherwise, please do feel free to head on over to the NikkiInnocent.com/podcast page and join the conversation, or just hit me up on social media. Drop a message on my social media and let me know how Checkbox Other has helped, has created conversation with people that maybe you've never had before, has had you reflecting about things that you never really reflected about, or given you, oh my goodness, given you the permission to really allow yourself to expand and to grow. I know a big part of this work for me has really been giving myself permission to question things, to potentially be wrong, to make mistakes. Oh my goodness, making mistakes, right? If anybody's a perfectionist in any way, it probably made you cringe for me to say that, but trust me, from a recovering perfectionist, it is one of the most beautiful things to allow yourself to be human. So with that, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful rest of your week or weekend, whenever you are listening to this. And I truly hope that you, one, subscribe to the podcast. Two, if you haven't yet, please do rate and drop a wonderful review into whatever podcast platform you use, so I can have a look at what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And really, I just am so excited for you to go out and spread forth your magic into the world. So until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful, magical life, my friends.